I did not start my life as a storyteller. I started my professional life as an 8th grade English teacher. And when I started out as a green teacher, fresh out of teacher college, I was going to set the world on fire. 8th grade really wasn't my first choice, but I thought, all right, that's the cards that I was dealt. I'm going to make the best hand of it. And I decorated my classroom up, and I had a parrot in the corner so we'd have something cool in our classroom. Other people had fish. I had a talking bird. You will not even want to hear the language they taught that bird. Oh my word, it was colorful. So things were going along well enough for a first year green educator, but I had one particular student who always came in next to the last hour of the day, and he sat in the very last available desk. Because being a young green educator, I had made the fatal mistake of allowing 8th graders to sit wherever they wanted. And he did nothing. To protect his innocence, and more to the point, to give you a clue as to what this kid was like, we will simply call him the Hood. Because that's what he wore every single day of his existence. He wore this big giant parka coat even when school started in August in South Carolina. He had this big giant parka coat that came down to his knees, long sleeves, inside was that bright orange quilted padding, and the big hood with the fake fur around the edges, and the hood was always flipped up. And he sat there in the very last chair of the very last row doing nothing. By the end of the first grading period, he was failing not only my class, but he was failing every other class on his roster. And so there was a parent-teacher conference. Now, when you're in elementary school and there's a parent-teacher conference, it's your mom, maybe your mom and your dad, and the teacher. But when you're in middle school, they gang up on you. So there was me, his English language arts teacher, and then there was his math teacher, and then there was his social studies teacher, and then there was his science teacher, and then there was his PE teacher, there was his band teacher, and the guidance counselor to facilitate the meeting. We all arrayed ourselves on one side of a big kidney table, and his mama sat all by herself opposite of us. And we started firing salvos. He's not doing this, he's not doing that, we can't give you this, he won't respond to that, blah, 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 blah. And we all went down the line, and then the guidance counselor said, Mrs. Hood, is there anything that you would like to say? And you know, this lady was not from the South, bless her heart. You all are, you know what that means. You know how in the South we say, how are you? And you're supposed to say, fine. Your mama could have died Tuesday, but you say, fine. I have a friend who immigrated here from Russia, and she said, in America, everybody happy, happy, happy. You say, how are you? I am happy, I'm happy. She said, in Russia, you say, how are you? You say, oh, my back, my head, the KGB. In the South in particular, you say, fine. This lady was not from the South. And so when we said, is there anything that you would like to say, fully expecting her to say, we will work on this, she told us her whole life story. I will spare you the gory details. The summarized version was that it had been a rocky relationship with her husband for several years, and the summer before this boy's 8th grade year of school, his dad had up and left. They had not heard from him in well over 3 months. They had no idea where he was, and they didn't know if he was ever coming home. And this boy was terribly affected by that, and he had tried to commit suicide twice. And of course, we all look at the guidance counselor and say, why did you not tell us any of this? Here we are, just on the boy's back all the time when he's got all of this to deal with. He was taking some pretty heavy medication for very, very deep depression. And so she said, I think what he really needs is a male role model. And that teacher looked at that teacher, and that teacher looked at that teacher, and that teacher looked at that teacher, because they were all women, and the domino effect came down to me. And so I responded with what everybody is taught to say in teacher college. I said, perhaps he would benefit from tutoring. I didn't know what else to say. That's what they teach you to say in teacher college. So she said, oh, that would be great. I don't get off work until 6 o'clock. School's out at 3:30. He can come to your room every day and I'll pick him up after work. Pull out my calendar, cancel my social life. So the hood came to my room 3:30 that afternoon, and he sat in his accustomed seat with a whole room of empty desks between me and himself. And I said, Hood, I had a very positive conversation with your mom this morning. I was lying my pants off, but I wanted to try to put a spin on this. And I said, we had a very positive conversation with your mom this morning, and she thought that you would benefit from some tutoring. So we worked out a deal. You're going to come to my room every day after school, and I will help you. Let's start with my subject. We'll work on English language arts, and then after we get that moved up to a better grade, we could maybe start in on social studies and math, and we'll just work our way through your subjects, and by the end of the next grading period, you'll be back on track. What do you think? He turned sideways so that all I could see was the profile of the hood. But I knew what to do for that. They teach you that in college. It's called monitor and adjust. So I took that in and I said, okay, I tell you what, maybe that's a little too much pressure. How about this? How about you're going to come here after school every day until your mom picks you up at 6 o'clock, and you can just sit back there and do your homework. It'll be like a free study hall. You get your homework done, I'll sit up here and do my teacher homework, and neither one of us will have to take anything home. We'll get it all done before we leave at 6 o'clock. I won't bother you, you don't bother me. What do you think of that? He turned all the way around so that I could see nothing but his back. Now, I was a theater major in college, and they will tell you in theater that your back to the audience is the most dramatic position you can take. Oh, that just went all over me. I didn't know what to do for that from teacher college. And so I just kind of lost it. I just got very upset and very mad, and I started yelling, and I said, we are bending over backward to help you, and you won't even meet us halfway. So I'm done. I am completely done. Get out a piece of paper, and we're going to write down all the assignments that you refuse to even talk about. And then I'm going to write a note to your mother saying that I tried to help you, but apparently you're beyond that. And so he pulled a piece of paper out of his book bag and slapped it on the desk. And then he fished out a pencil. It was broken. So he pulled out another pencil. And I said, all right, now, my class, what was the assignment for today? We were supposed to help the students keep a journal. That was a big deal at the time. Everybody had to keep a journal. I don't know why. What do you do with those things after you write in them in 8th grade? Keep a journal. And I said, all right, what was it that I suggested you write in your journal today? It was nearing Halloween at this point in the school year. And the assignment from the teacher's manual was have the children write a process, directions. Have them write directions to their house. And as an example, you could on the board write directions to your house. They need to learn how to write directions. I was like, I do not want these children knowing where I live. I mean, they were demons. There was no way I wanted, and I certainly didn't want to go visit them. I mean, I saw enough of them at school. It said, if you don't want to do that, have the boys write how to fix something or how to change a flat tire, and have the girls write how to bake a cake. I was like, girls don't bake cakes. Nobody does that. I mean, made from scratch means scratched out of a Betty Crocker box. That's the best they can do. And I thought, no, we got to jazz this up. So I said, okay, we're supposed to write a process. We're supposed to write multi-step directions. I said, let me tell you about some Halloween pranks we used to play when I was your age. And I told them all kinds of stories about Halloween pranks, and then asked them if they could write a short journal entry on how to play their favorite practical joke or prank. Toilet paper. I mean, my siblings and I, we were the master of toilet paper pranks. You might have toilet papered somebody's front yard when you were a kid. We toilet papered a man's horse one time. It was fabulous. And if you take toilet paper and stretch it across the road in a blind curve, in the middle of the night when someone comes around the curve at 55 miles an hour and that toilet paper is lit up in their headlights, it looks just like a 2x4 at windshield level. And so they'll hit the brakes, and then when their car touches the toilet paper, it just goes blink. I told them all of these stories, and I said, now, I want you to go home and write how to play your favorite practical joke or prank. And I said, Hood, can't you at least do that? No. You never, ever, ever played a practical joke or a prank on anybody? No. And then a still small voice deep inside of me said, Tim, he's telling you the truth. This boy is suicidal. He is afraid. You gotta have some guts to play a practical joke or a prank. I knew that still small voice because I was raised a Baptist. That was the word of the Lord. And I thought, when I hear the Spirit, I will pray. And the Spirit said, follow my lead. So I stood up and I said, okay, toilet paper. We talked a lot about toilet paper today. If you could toilet paper anybody's room in this entire school, who would you pick? Why did I say that? It just flew out. And before I could suck it back in, there were the words swirling around in the universe. And all of a sudden, there was a glint, a spark from deep within the recesses of that hood. I saw his eyes light up and I was like, okay, run with it. Just go with it. I said, who would you do? He said, I would toilet paper the science lab. And I felt myself move away from my desk. It was like I was watching this outside of my own body. I walked to the doorway and I turned around and looked at him and I said, if you think you're man enough, come on. And I walked out of the hall. What am I doing? This is my very first teaching assignment. I have been on the job 6 whole weeks. I am going to get fired. But he stood up and he followed me into the hall. And I thought, no. I remember from Sunday school. You are never given to temptation such as you are not able to bear. The Lord will provide a way of escape. There's a way out of this. I didn't know what it is. The custodian's closet where they keep toilet paper is always locked. Always locked. I don't know if you've had a lot of experience with toilet paper in a middle school, but they guard the stuff as if it were made of solid gold. I have been in the faculty restroom and heard a radio come on in the neighboring stall and someone say, we need more toilet paper in the men's room. And then you hear the custodian from the other end come on. I'll get to that right after lunch. I am in the men's restroom. So I thought, no, there's no way. It'll be locked. No. The door is standing wide open. So we selected toilet paper. We left off with the little rolls. We got 3 of those big rolls like they have in the dispensers in the bathroom at Walmart. You know, they look like the size of a truck tire. We got 3 of those and we carried them down the hallway and I'm thinking, no, there's still a way out of this. There's still a way out because the science lab is filled with all kinds of expensive equipment. I mean, she's got live animals in cages in there, Bunsen burners, computers. No, that door too is wide open, not locked up at all. And so I thought, here it is, the road to perdition. And we just walked right in. Oh man, we did it up. There were ceiling tiles that you could lift, and so we lifted them and whoop, 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 all around. I mean, the prom was nothing compared to what we did with this. All looped around. We filled a 4-drawer filing cabinet full of toilet paper, wrapped every table, every chair. Oh my word, it was fabulous. His hood came down. Beautiful, head of brown hair, dark brown eyes. I really didn't know what the boy looked like. We had the most fun, climbed up on those tables and got it all done. And then we closed the door and it clicked locked behind us. We went back down to my room and I said, now Hood, we only have a few minutes before your mama's gonna come. Could you sit down and write me just a bullet list in sentence form of how to toilet paper a science lab? Yeah! So he pulls out paper and a pencil, and as he begins to write, the zipper on his jacket started to slip down, and he forgot himself and that big heavy coat fell off in the chair behind him. And I noticed that he was writing left-handed. So he was doing that hooky thing where you drag your elbow through the ink that you just put on the paper, and it was making an absolute mess. And I almost said, Hood, why don't you try writing with your right hand? I know it was the Holy Spirit that shut my mouth. Because when his jacket fell away, I saw his right hand, which had 4 little stubs and a thumb. He'd been born that way. Now, that's not a big deal. And you can live a full life with 4 stubs and a thumb, unless you're in 8th grade, you don't want anybody to look at you, your father has deserted your family, and you have tried to commit suicide twice. And he had receded into that jacket for safety. So he struggled through left-handed with that handwriting, and then I struggled to read what he had written in his smeary ink. And I said, "This is great. I always thought you could write. This is great. You did a great job." I said, "I'm not giving you an A. You earned an A on your journal assignment." I put a big A at the top of the paper. He put everything back in his book bag, and just as he zipped it up, his mom stepped in, and she looked at her son. She said, "What'd you do?" He looked at his mom and said, "Nothing." I knew we had a pact. So I just smiled at her and said, "We made a little progress and we're very anxious to work again tomorrow." So they went home, I went home. The next morning I got up and I was getting ready for school, and I thought, maybe I should call the science teacher. So I grabbed the phone and I dialed her number and I said, "Debbie, have you left for school yet?" She said, "No, I'm just about ready to walk out the door. What do you got?" I said, "Well, when you get to school today, you're going to find a surprise in your science lab." She said, "Ooh, did you find me a bug or something?" I said, "Oh no, it's not a bug. But you'll see." I said, "I just want you right now to know that I know about it and I'll explain things when I get there." She said, "Okay." So I hung up the phone and I thought, okay, that's fine. I'll explain things when I get there. What I was not counting on is that science teachers do not unlock schools and get the day ready. Assistant principals do. Our assistant principal was this little man about this big, and he was so mean that he could walk down the hall and just look at a kid and they would immediately start going, I didn't do it, whatever it is, I didn't do it. I mean, he could give a glance at certain boys and they would just immediately start emptying their pockets because they knew he was after contraband. So I go to school, I have homeroom. Now, my homeroom, those children were dangerous people. I had a child who came to school by special permission with her counselor. She attended school in an orange jumpsuit because she had committed a felony. And she sat right on the front row of my homeroom. You did not take your eyes off these children, they would rob you blind. And so I'm watching my homeroom and I'm checking the roll and I hear heavy breathing at the door. It's like somebody let a bulldog in. And I took a quick glance, and there's the assistant principal, Mr. Barnes. And he says, "Mr. Lowry, I need to see you in the hallway right away." And I said, "Oh no, Mr. Barnes, you know my sweet children. I cannot leave these children." I was using them as a human shield. He said, "I need to speak to you in the hallway about a confidential matter." I said, "No, I'm sorry, Mr. Barnes, I can't leave these children. Why don't you come in and just whisper in my ear?" Oh, there was no whispering. He walked in, he stood right there at my left shoulder, and he said, "Mr. Lowry, somebody broke into this school last night and toilet papered Debbie's science lab." And I look up, and the hood is in his accustomed seat, and from the recesses of that jacket, I can see him going. We had a pact. I could not rat him out. And so I took a deep breath, said a quick prayer. In a real moment of desperation, I mean, when your feet hit the bottom of the lion's den, your prayer is help. And then I turned to Mr. Barnes and I said, "No!" All of a sudden, my whole group of 8th graders were silent. All eyes were on me and Mr. Barnes. He said, "Mr. Lowry, do you know something about this? Debbie said that you called her this morning and said you had a surprise for her in the science lab. What was that surprise, Mr. Lowry?" I looked at my kids, I weighed my options, I said, "If I told you, it wouldn't be a surprise." I thought the man would explode. I mean, he was you could see the steam shooting out of his ears. And then he pulled a ruler out of his back pocket. I said, "If you hit me with that thing, you are going to be so sorry." He said, "Oh, no. He said, "Put your foot right up here." And he bent down and stuck out his knee. He said, "Put your foot on my knee." I said, "Excuse me." He said, "There were footprints on the tables, and I am about to measure your shoe." I looked at the orange jumpsuit. She said, "You need a warrant for that." I said, "I have it on good legal advice that you need a warrant for that." He jammed that ruler in his back pocket. He said, "I think you know more about this, but you're not willing to say." I said, "I can neither confirm nor deny that accusation." And he turned around and walked out, and the bell rang, and the kids flooded the hall, and there was a big crowd in the hall, and I used the crowd to slip away, and I got down to the science room. All the kids in our particular teaching group had gone to the gym for PE, and when they flew off to PE, I ran to the science lab, and I told Debbie, I said, okay, here's what happened. And I told her the events of the day before, and she said, "That's great. You got him to write in his journal. Oh, that's wonderful. She said, but we could do better. Go down to the gym and get Brian. Well, Brian was one of those little 8th grade boys who had not hit his growth spurt yet. You know, he was only about that tall, and he was all mouth. And she brought Brian down to the science lab, and she said, Brian, I'm all the time fussing at you, climbing around on the furniture like a monkey. She said, now's your chance. Climb up on the tables and help us pull all this down and clean up. And so while Brian is cleaning up everything, Debbie let it slip that it was the hood who had papered the science lab. Oh no. Brian went back and blabbed to everybody, and by the end of PE, the hood was the hero of 8th grade. Later that afternoon, I actually saw him giving Stubby high fives as he went down the hall. Everybody learned who he was. That afternoon, she had wrapped the hood's assigned chair so that when he came into the science lab, it was a little subtle reminder, game over. Later that afternoon, after bus duty and after the hood had come for more tutoring and he had gone home, Mr. Barnes, the assistant principal, came back to my room. Mr. Barnes said, toilet paper, huh? I said, yes, sir. So you got him to write in his journal, huh? Yes, sir. Now, I hesitate to tell you this because I fear you'll think I'm making it up. Mr. Barnes always shook hands left-handed because he also was born with no fingers on his right hand. And he reached out with his right hand with those 4 little stumps in that thumb, and he hooked the arm around my shoulders and he jerked me up close to him. He was a lot shorter than I was, so he whispered up into my ear and he said, you did a really good thing for that boy. And then he pushed me back. He was completely assistant principal again. He said, next time, just do it in somebody else's building. And that was the end of that.